Hello and welcome to the Colorcast. This week we have none other than Riccardo Ricci. Riccardo is a venture capitalist, investor, entrepreneur, jack of all trades from La Spezia, Italy. Riccardo, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, brother.
Absolutely. Riccardo, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. We gave a brief little cameo about who you are, what you do, but just tell us about yourself.
100%. So I'm 24 years old. I'm from Italy originally, as you said. Lived there my whole life until I was 18. My background is in soccer. So I played professional soccer until 18 back home, which is what brought me here to the States. I came on a soccer scholarship. That's obviously where we met, me and Tyler. We played together in college, played 4 years of college. And obviously during college and out of college, I just got into sales. And that also brought into entrepreneurship, venture capital, just a lot of other things now that we'll touch on in the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you get into sales? Like was that your first job out of college?
Yes, it was. Actually, I had an internship my junior year. That was my first kind of experience with sales.
Okay,
and I got into it really. I always knew I wanted to get into some sort of sales. My uncle was in sales, but overall, I always knew I wasn't really cut out for 9 to 5 or just kind of a regular job, so to speak. So I was always kind of looking for opportunities outside of just the norm or outside of the box. So I knew that's something I wanted to do. I just never really know how I would go about it. And then I just got connected through a friend my junior year, and I ended up finding a sales internship. And that's kind of how it all started.
Awesome. Super cool. So you got into sales your junior year of college, is that correct?
Junior year of college, in that summer of junior year, yes.
Very cool. So what was the biggest challenge for you as a salesman? And then how did you get into owning your own business?
100%. So starting out in sales, it's obviously hard. I did straight up cold calling, cold knocking sales. So the biggest part starting out, when you're never exposed to it, it's just the rejection part of that. Obviously you grow to like it and to accept it and to know what it is. But when you first start out, if I remember my first week, my first 2 weeks, it's just hell, right?
Yeah.
And everybody that's in sales has gone through that. And you obviously learn to appreciate it and like it. And the better you get, the less of that you experience. But at first, it's just the barrier of the rejection and just the confusion of knowing if you'll ever figure it out. Am I ever even going to figure this thing out? Is it ever going to work? And just having that persistence, the resilience to just stick through that period and through that learning curve that obviously has to happen before you then experience massive success and just a lot of other things. But that's kind of like at first, I see it happen time and time again. Now, obviously, I'm in charge of other people and I manage them and train them. So you see that recurrently when somebody first start out, all those doubts and the fear and the rejection, all those things creep up. So it's just, I would say that's the hardest part, is just keeping your emotions in check, being able to just be still and neutral through all of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you manage to have success from a sales standpoint? You talked about the rejection. You're only 24 years old, so that's got to be kind of mentally draining sometimes to constantly hear no, but how did you push through?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, and I've always been pretty big on that, I just have no other option. I feel like I teach it to my guys. I kind of live by that in anything I do. Once you have a goal, if you commit to doing something, there's just no other option. And at the end of the day, if you commit to doing something and you promise yourself you're going to figure it out, and it's a proven path, at the end of the day, you know that if somebody's done before you what you want to do, or if you're working a sales job, let's say you're selling something, and somebody that worked there before you, that's working there as you are, is doing what you want to do, is making what you want to make, or is doing the numbers you want to do, it's possible, it's proven. So it's just up to you to make it happen. And there's just no other option at that point. So when I first started out, my first week or two, obviously every day in your mind, you want to quit. That's what everybody wants to do when you're there and you just start and do it. You're going to want to quit, period. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun. And I just promised to myself, no matter what, I could literally stay out here for the whole summer and not sell a single account. I said, I'm going to do this and I'm just going to figure it out. I don't care what happens. I just have no other else, business, entrepreneurship, everything. It's like, once I'm in on something, I'm just all in. There's no way back back until I figure it out. So I preach that. And obviously, if you do that and you just burn the bridges and you're all in, it's the less draining. That's the most draining part. Most people just never give it their all. And that applies to life as well, just sales, life, entrepreneurship. The most draining conversation you'll ever have with yourself is when you're 50-50 or 70-30 and you're in and out, or you want to go work out at the gym and you're at the gym and you're like, I don't know, do I want to work out? Do I not? And that's the hardest part. It's harder than working out, right? If you just went and did it, it would be way easier than just actually having that constant conversation with yourself, if you're going to do it or not. And it's not as draining. Once you just figure it out and you just say, I have no option, this is what I do, all the thought and the fight with yourself and the back and forth goes away. And it's just a lot easier to just go and figure it out.
That's great. So what exactly did you sell, and how did you develop that success afterwards with selling what you were selling?
I sold a lot of things. So my first job was selling smart home software and equipment. So it was with Vivint Smart Homes, door to door. But that was what I did my internship junior year. So it was cameras, home security softwares, it involved some solar, things like that. So that's what I started doing. And then this last year through EcoShield, these home services that we sold door to door. So pest control, mainly door to door, that we did in the summer season in Florida. And now I'm involved in solar startups. We're just doing a lot of solar, and we're also selling just a lot more like higher ticket items. But it's just kind of been a projection of like different products. And that's kind of what it taught me along my career, is the product doesn't really matter what you're selling. The skills and the communication and what you learn and how to sell and how to communicate with people, which is what sales really is applicable in anything. So no matter if you're selling a coffee cup or a camera or solar panels or a car or whatever you're going to sell, it's just the same thing. And obviously it's translatable in life and communication and everything.
That's great. Yeah. So how did you transition from being a salesman to owning your own business, and how did you get your foot in the door?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. I knew in the back of my mind, I always knew just through college and when I started in sales, I always knew my end goal was to have my own business. That was always the end goal for me. I wanted to own a business, own assets, be kind of in charge and in a sense of having control of my asset and like my work. So that was always my end goal. I knew that was going to happen. And I was doing sales to raise the money to actually be able to go and finally do that. So that was always in the end goal. I didn't think it would happen as soon as it happened. In a way, the timing was a little bit different than I envisioned it. But the way it came up is through networks and through the people I knew. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing for everybody, especially at a young age. When you're starting to work, you're starting to see some success, you're going to be exposed to people that are as successful, if probably more successful than you are, and that are years ahead of you and that have it figured out more than you do. So it's just about, for me, I just developed a lot of good connections and good friendships and relationships with these people. And down the road, a lot of opportunities came my way because of those early on relationships and connections that I developed as I was just starting out. So the Everbowl investment just came through one of my buddies, Jason, that's now my business partner. But we worked together at Vivint. He was my boss my first summer at my internship. He hired me, he was my boss. And I worked for him the whole summer. Obviously I did well for him. So he knew what I was able to do. And I think I was his best intern that summer. And so we developed a connection. We went our separate ways. He went and did other things. I went and did other things. We stayed in touch. We just kept having a really good relationship. And then down the road, it turns out we kind of crossed paths again. He presented me the opportunity that came his way. So we just kind of rejoined, and now we partnered on that and a few other startups, a few other things we're doing together.
Very cool. So you touched on, obviously, being super young, new to the business world, somewhat, about 2 years removed from college. What would you say, especially as a 24-year-old sort of new entrepreneur, if you will, what has been the biggest challenge for you in starting your own business?
I would say just a lot of the moving pieces that go into the business that you don't really think about when you're starting a business. If you look at a business from the outside, all you really see is just the end goal, right? The point of sale. If you're looking at some stores, or if you're looking at a, you know, store, online commerce, anything, you're just seeing the surface level of that business. You're just seeing the transactions happen on the way that operates on the surface. But behind that, to make sure that everything operates the way it's supposed to be, to even make sure that those things are there to be sold at that certain time, there's so much that goes into HR, hiring people, managing personnel, distribution channels, you know, all of that, the products, the sourcing of those products, a lot of those things that you never think about when you're starting the business. And you're kind of like, oh yeah, here's what we're going to do. We're going to sell this, and here's how it's going to happen. Once you actually know and do it, you look at the backside of the business and you're like, oh, okay, I got to keep the books going all the time. I got to figure this out. You have accountants, you have lawyers, you have all these things that you got to keep together. I got to look at our distributors. I got to make sure everything's delivered on time. All those things to even make sure that that last point of sale even happens. Because, you know, for me coming from sales, I had a really good understanding of obviously how the sales part of that goes, how revenue is produced for the business, how you drive revenue, how you increase the revenue. I knew how to do that. So I was always very comfortable with that. I just had no idea, and I was never involved in all of the back operations part of the business. Yeah. And obviously I had a certain understanding and a certain idea, but when you actually dive deeper into that, it just gets to another level. And so just figuring that part out and just making sure that everything runs as it's supposed to be, all the legal part of the business. There's so much legal things that you got to be aware of, the things you can say or not say, all those things. It's just kind of new territory. And that's where I think surrounding yourself with people that have been there, done that before you, and that have seen more success, it just shortened my learning curve dramatically. I mean, to be fully honest right now, I don't know that I could be having the business running and operating the way it is right now, especially with the way we're scaling and expanding and growing so fast. I don't know. I probably wouldn't be able to do all of that if I went into it by myself. Yeah. But obviously having people around me that have way more experience, that can guide me the right way, they can mentor me in a way, and obviously show you the ropes and show you how it's done. It's just a lot easier. Just cut my learning curve way more. And you always know you kind of have something to fall back on, because I can go out there and figure something out and try it out, and I can mess it up completely. I know there's somebody there that's kind of gonna save it, you know? Yeah. So I think that's what relationships and kind of your support system and the people you look up to and you surround yourself with is just very important.
Absolutely. So one thing that I want to touch on really quickly, it sounds like the biggest sort of value or compliment that I've seen from you, or attribute per se, would be probably the humility and being very coachable and teachable. And obviously you've played in college soccer, you have a professional soccer background, a sales background, and you've had a lot of success. You've climbed the top of the mountain. You've done over $1 million in sales. But how do you react when you reach a goal? Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's 2 million, or maybe you've just owned and operated your very first business and it's going super, super well. But what keeps you motivated? How do you stay fulfilled through that entire process?
That's a super good question. And obviously it took me a long time to even figure that out. And I feel like as you progress and as you grow, not just in business, but as a human being and as a person, that goal and that fulfillment and that drive and that motivation comes from different things. So it's constantly evolving. There's not going to be something that motivates you right now that will keep motivating you in 5 years. What probably motivates me now it will be something different in 5 years that keeps me going. But it's a really great question, because I've questioned myself a lot on that. And I've been looking, and I'm still figuring it out. I don't have all the answers by any means. But the big thing is for me is setting the right goals and the right expectations and focusing a lot more on the process. What I've seen through a lot of people, especially younger people, when people that are ambitious and driven and they see success at an early age, and it happened to me too, you tend to get very obsessive over the outcome and the result. And you tend to just burn yourself out or give yourself no credit for what you're doing, just learning and just growing towards that next goal. What I used to do personally for me, before I went through a few things personally that kind of changed my perspective on it, I would just throw everything out the window. I had this goal, say the goal is $1 million, say the goal is whatever sales target. I would just say, I'll be happy when I hit this goal. And before this goal, I just grind, and there's nothing else. And what ends up happening is your life just gets fully consumed. Your relationships suffer, your fulfillment, your happiness, your health, all of those things just kind of deteriorate and go out the window. And it's just kind of a trend that I've seen with every kind of successful person that I've been around, that I've met. It's something that everybody experiences at first, because to reach some of those goals and to do some of those things in a short period of time, sometimes you do need to go into that mode where like flight or flight, just grind and do it. Yeah. But obviously everybody grows past that, and then you figure out, okay, this is not really the answer. You know, everybody starts getting into, I feel like a lot of people getting business or getting sales or entrepreneurship, they do it for the money and for the success, quote unquote, and the glamour and the life, for all those things, which is great, but it's not going to make you happy. It's just not. I used to think it would. I had this big imaginary goal in my head, right? That when I do this, and when I own my own business, and when I make X amount, and when I hit that next revenue goal, then I'll be happy, and then I'll have life figured out. And it just doesn't work like that. You hit that goal, you hit that revenue metric, you hit whatever big thing you think in your head is going to make you happy. You hit that, and then you turn around and you're like, oh, that was cool. What's next? You know, it happened to me a few times. I had a few of those moments where I'm just working so hard for something. It finally happens. You think it's going to be this insane amount of fulfillment and happiness. And then it happens. It maybe lasts about an hour. You celebrate it, you go to dinner, and then you're like, oh, okay, what's next? Back to work, right? So I think for me, the big shift has been in focusing on the outcome and the process, finding fulfillment in what you actually do, not what the outcome is what your actual day-to-day actions and operations are. If you can find happiness and fulfillment in what that is, whatever it is for your job, if it's sales, if it's running the business, if it's talking to your employees, is just actually being fulfilled in that specific action, regardless of the outcome. That's when you really just find the fulfillment, and that really just keeps you going. That's kind of where you're going to just be happy and be fulfilled and be happy to do what you do. If you don't, and you just focus on the outcome, everything you do along the way to get to that outcome just becomes a chore. You just get burned out. You don't enjoy any of the process. Your relationships suffer personally and professionally. So you just really get into that spiral. That I was into that. I've seen a lot of people getting into that. Obviously, once you break out of it, it gets a lot more fulfilling, a lot more enjoyable. And the crazy thing is, once you actually stop focusing so much on results, and you actually stop focusing about fulfillment and people and happiness, and you just figure out what really drives your people, or giving back or helping them out achieve their goals, that's what really going to bring you fulfillment. Your results are going to skyrocket regardless. That's a funny thing I've seen in my business, is the second I stop focusing so much on my goals and myself, and the second I started focusing on the process and my people and giving back to them, make sure they're happy, make sure we give back, I shifted that goal. I started being a hell of a lot happier, way less stressed, way more fulfilled, and our business skyrocketed. So it just kind of all blends together, but it's a lot of trial and error, and I don't have it all figured out. It's just about figuring out really what is it for you, and what can make you happy, and what you're doing specifically.
That's great. I love that. So what would you say, obviously you've already experienced some of the highs and lows that business has to offer. What would you say is your vision maybe for you in the future, whether it be from an entrepreneurial standpoint or maybe like your future plans?
Absolutely. So I'm just getting involved with my partner, Jason. We partnered together in Everbowl. We are actually getting involved in a solar startup together in San Diego. So that's going to take up a lot of our time. And we actually are getting involved in some private equity investments. So we're raising money for venture capital, a few of those things we're just really excited about. So that's kind of my short-term or longer-term vision, is obviously just working on the startup, working on solar a lot, private equity, raising funds, a lot of those things, working on projects that I'm really passionate about, as long as keeping Everbowl going. That's where my focus is going to be as a vision. Obviously, business is just ever evolving. So you could be working on something right now. In a year or two, it could be different. I just think the longer term vision for me overall, just what I want my career, just my business to be about overall, at the end of the day, if you really, really, really get to the core of that, sales and business, entrepreneurship, it's just about people. That's really it. So once you master, in a way, the art of connecting and giving back and just being good around people and to people, everything else just falls into place regardless. I just feel like I've seen it happen to myself and to a lot of other people. Once you grow really and once you have a skill, right, which in my case can be selling, can be, obviously now I'm learning the skill of operating, investing, a lot of those things. Once you actually have a skill and you're really good at that, if you're able to just connect with people the right way, give back to people, just be a genuine person, just be honest, everything will always go your way, no matter what, in one way or the other. And if it doesn't go your way right now, somebody's going to remember it and it will go your way next year. It's always going to fall into place. So for my long-term vision, it's really just about figuring that out and getting better at that, which obviously I feel like in the last year I've grown tremendously from the way I was to the way I am and the way I see things now and where my goals are, my purpose and all those things just grew a lot. Obviously there's a lot of way to grow still. So I'm still getting better and better every day, just seeking guidance, all of those things. But I feel like that's what I want my businesses to just really be about, is you just figure out, once you have a skill for yourself and once you get to a point in your mindset where you figured out you have enough skill or enough business or enough income or whatever to where you're okay and you don't have to worry about yourself as much because you're good, then you can really shift your focus from your survival mode of, oh, I need to do this because I need to eat, I need to do this, I need to survive. Once you're taken care of, you can shift your focus from that to actually passing those skills that you learn and giving it to other people, right?
Yeah.
And teaching them how to do the same thing you've done. That's one of the most fulfilling things that I've done so far. And just that I try to incorporate in all my businesses is just being able to transfer those skills and giving people the opportunity to grow within the business to just put those skills to use.
So good. I love that. One mentor of mine, he usually brings up the fact of, and something you just touched on that I loved, is being able to show someone how to do the job. And it's having the humility to hopefully see them do a better job than you, giving them a legacy to sort of pass on. Now, piggybacking off of that, what you just brought up, which I love, what's the best piece of advice you might give to someone who's an aspiring entrepreneur or maybe wants to start their own business?
Obviously, I would say go all in, have your vision figured out. And for everybody that's first starting out in business, when you're an entrepreneur, or you're getting into anything that's not necessarily the norm, you're going to get a lot of pullback. That's just how it works, right? That's how society works. It happened to me when I first started doing sales. A lot of people around me in my life just thought I was crazy. They just thought I was just doing, you just have to learn to roll with that. Have a vision, know why you're doing it, know it to your core. And if you truly believe that's the right vision and that's the right way for you to go about it, just do it. Go all in, forget about anything else, and just do it. Figure it out along the way. The biggest thing is you're just never going to have it figured out, period. Most people will wait and they'll study a little more and they'll read a little more until they feel ready, until I know I can do this now. I've learned enough, I've waited enough, I've studied enough I got my degree to where now I can go and do this. The reality is you're never going to have that figured out, period. You're never going to feel ready to do it. I've seen people that are way more successful than I am that seems like they have it all figured out and they don't. They still roll with it and they still go day by day and they just go, fail, learn, try again. So that's my number one thing is don't wait until you're ready. Don't wait until you feel like it's the perfect time. It will just not ever be. So just if you feel like it's with your heart and you want to really do it and you want to give it a shot, just do it. And the second thing I would say is make sure that you're in it for the right reasons.
That's great.
Don't do it for the money. Don't do it to say you're an entrepreneur. Don't do it for the glory. Just don't do it for any of those reasons, because it will just end you up in a pretty bad spot. If you do, make sure you're clear within yourself, when you're core, that everything you're doing is actually aligned with your values. And if your business and what you do is aligned with your personal values, that's just going to be a great journey. You're going to have a lot of fulfillment, a lot of success. You're going to figure out a way to be successful and do it. When you get burned out, when you quit, when you fail, is when you're not in it for the right reasons. And at that point, there's that disconnect to where maybe you are having a lot of success. Maybe you are doing something that's paying you very well, or just you're having a lot of results. But if you look at yourself deep down inside and those values are not aligned to what you're doing, that brings you to burnout, that brings you to being unfulfilled. And it happened to me. So that's why I speak from experience. I wouldn't recommend going that way. Just there's a lot of different ways in business to where you can be very successful. You can make a lot of money. There's a lot of different ways. So there's not one way that's better than the other. You can make it, quote unquote, make it any way you want. Just make sure that anything you do brings you happiness along the way and along the process, and it is aligned with your values as a person and where you want to be.
That's so good. Riccardo, you just brought some heat, man. I'm so glad that we could have you on. I know I just got super inspired. Such a pleasure. I'm so glad we got to have you on the podcast this week. Can you let people know how they can stay up to date with you and your business?
G7, double C's on both. You can find me there. If you want to follow my business, Everbowl Craft Superfood is our Instagram page. And we will actually be dropping a few more pages. We are actually just working on a pretty big marketing project right now. We're having some videographers come out for us, for our solar startup, for Everbowl, for a few more funds and our investments. So we will be dropping a few more pages. The links will be on my Instagram page, and you guys will be able to follow those and just kind of stay up to date on opportunities and things like that we're involved in. So all of that is coming. But yeah, my personal Instagram, Riccardo Ricci 7, Everbowl Craft Superfood for the acai bowls. And then we'll go from there. But yeah, it's very good to be here. Glad to be on the podcast. Glad to catch up with you. And thanks for having me.
Of course.